They thought banning me from Thanksgiving was just tidying up loose ends. They forgot who paid the bills. Over $9,500 worth of warmth. So, with winter breathing down Chicago's neck, I made one quiet click online. Cancel gas service. Let them feel the literal chill of their decision. Let them understand what happens when you push the family's financial backbone out into the cold. Their precious peace was about to freeze over. My name is Monica, and at 27, I thought I finally had a handle on navigating my complicated family dynamics, until that November phone call blew everything apart. I was curled up against the armchair, one hand cradling a warm mug of tea, the other idly flipping through an old magazine I'd snagged from a corner thrift shop. The early November air, carrying that distinct pre-winter chill off Lake Michigan, seeped relentlessly through every crack of my small Chicago, Illinois apartment. Outside the window, the leaden grey sky pressed down, looking like it desperately wanted to blanket the city in snow, but remained strangely silent. Then, the phone rang, abruptly shattering the delicate quiet. I glanced at the screen. Dad. My breath caught, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. Steeling myself, I hit the speaker button, not daring to hope for anything pleasant. Monica, you don't need to come home for Thanksgiving this year. His voice was unnervingly light, almost casual, as if discussing picking up milk. For a dizzying second, I thought I'd misheard. I'm sorry. What? He continued without pause, the words obviously rehearsed. We just think it's better if you stayed put this time. You know, to keep things peaceful. Jessica's been a bit on edge lately, you know. Jessica. Always Jessica. The family held its collective breath whenever her comfort was potentially threatened. I set the teacup down, the sound echoing sharply. So, I managed, voice tight. I'm uninvited because Jessica gets tense? My dad sighed, that signature exasperated sound that always meant, don't make this a big deal. It's just one day, Monica. You'll be fine. I shot up from the chair, the worn wood creaking in protest. Just one day, I repeated, my voice now dangerously low, matching the chill seeping in from the window. You say that after I've sent over $5,500 to the house this year alone? Since January, just keeping the gas heat running through last winter. Silence crackled on the other end, just the faint hum of the line stretching the distance between Chicago and the suburbs. Don't bring money into this, he finally mumbled, sounding flustered. You offered to help. A dry, hollow laugh escaped me. Offered? When the heating bill spiked last winter, and you called at midnight saying the house was freezing, who paid it immediately? Me. When Mom cried because the furnace was making noises, who arranged the repair? Me again. And who paid for the fall gas pre-buy this September after Jessica blew through nearly $18,000 of your savings on that ridiculous themed subscription box idea? The boxes, filled with cheap trinkets she bought in bulk and tried to pass off as curated, were probably still piled up in the garage on Maple Avenue. But she was young. She made mistakes. I stared out at the darkening sky. Fine. If I wasn't family enough for Thanksgiving dinner, I wasn't family enough to keep their heat on. The decision clicked into place, sharp and final. With that cold resolve solidifying inside me, I ended the call before he could utter another syllable, the phone screen going dark, mirroring the sudden frost in my gaze. Outside, the first hesitant snowflakes began their silent descent onto Chicago. The abrupt silence in my apartment felt heavy as I found myself sinking onto the edge of the bed, hands gripping each other tightly. his casual dismissal, the sheer ease with which they cast me aside after everything, replayed with stinging clarity, excluded from Thanksgiving like an inconvenient errand. A surge of defiant energy finally propelled me toward my desk. Laptop open, the wind rattling the old window frame as if echoing my inner turmoil, I navigated to the familiar utility portal, the financial lifeline I had established 2 winters ago after Mom's tearful pleas about the frigid house on Maple Avenue. My account. My payments. Every single one of the $9,500 sent over the last 2 years, an unspoken duty performed till I became utterly disposable. My cursor hovered, trembling slightly, over the cancel service button. It wasn't doubt holding me back, but the profound gravity of the severance. A deep breath, then a decisive click. Confirmation flashed instantly. Service ending November 2nd, 4 weeks before Thanksgiving. Closing the lid felt strangely ceremonial. A wave of hollowness washed over me, quickly followed by a grim, unfamiliar lightness. The tightrope of familial obligation had finally snapped. Standing on the cold floor of my own warm, quiet space, I knew exactly why I'd cut the cord. The tangible proof of that severed cord arrived precisely on schedule, November 2nd, via a starkly official email confirmation. Gas service at the Maple Avenue address was terminated. Reading it in my quiet Chicago kitchen, the gentle hum of my personal space heater, a counterpoint to the digital finality, felt less like triumph and more like grim necessity fulfilled. Outside, snow began to fall in earnest, a premature blanket settling over the city. I thought briefly of the drafty old house, imagining the inevitable chill seeping through its thin windows now that the furnace was silent. Yet, the expected pang of guilt never materialized, replaced instead by a chilling clarity. Treating kindness as an entitlement has consequences. Just 4 days later, the inevitable outreach began. Mom's text feigned innocence. "Monica, the heating seems to be acting up. Can you check it for me?" I set the phone down, leaving the message unread. Jessica's followed that evening, dripping with disdain. So childish. No preamble, just judgment. My phone was promptly switched to silent. Day 7 brought Dad's inevitable call, which I ignored until the voicemail icon appeared. "Monica." His voice crackled with a mixture of anger and rising panic. "I don't know what's going on. The house is down to 58 degrees Fahrenheit. If you know anything, call me." I deleted it without a second thought, instead walking purposefully toward Michigan Avenue, seeking refuge in the anonymous comfort of a bookstore and the warm embrace of a nearby cafe, losing myself in a new novel, a deliberate act of reclaiming my time. That deliberate detachment carried me through the next few weeks, culminating in a Thanksgiving morning unlike any I'd known. Chicago lay muffled under fresh snow, eerily quiet. I woke before dawn, the pale light filtering in, and fixed myself a simple breakfast, toast, peanut butter, and orange, a conscious rejection of the elaborate meals and forced cheer of holidays past on Maple Avenue. By mid-morning, I was cocooned on my sofa, blanket warm, coffee hot, a documentary playing softly. The peace felt earned, fragile. Then, the jarring sound I'd half expected. Sharp, insistent rings at the doorbell. A glance through the peephole confirmed my suspicion. Dad. He stood there, swallowed by a thick coat, face tight with cold and frustration, the familiar expectation warring with desperation in his eyes. Cracking the door, I let the warmth of my apartment meet the frigid air clinging to him. "Monica!" His voice was strained, breath pluming. We need to talk. I remained framed in the doorway. Not today, Dad. He pushed past the refusal. You cut the gas, he accused, voice flat. The house is freezing. Your mum's sick. Jessica locked herself upstairs. It's barely 38 degrees Fahrenheit in there. My voice was steady, cold. I didn't cut anything. I stopped paying the $9,500+ bill under my name after being uninvited. There's a crucial difference. He flinched. It was just a misunderstanding, he stammered. I shook my head slowly. You wanted peace for Jessica. I stayed away. The rest is on you now. He stared, speechless, then turned abruptly and crunched back through the snow. The click of my deadbolt sliding home felt final, firm. While my Chicago apartment remained my warm sanctuary after Thanksgiving, the inevitable fallout eventually reached me via my cousin, Sarah. She called the following week, her voice a reluctant mix of concern and disbelief, painting a grim picture of rapid disintegration back on Maple Avenue. Jessica couldn't take the cold and bolted, Sarah reported bluntly. Lasted barely 3 days with a friend in Evanston before wearing out her welcome. Now she's bouncing between couches, rootless and frantic. Predictable. Jessica's dramas required support, now completely gone. And Aunt Carol? I kept my voice neutral, though my stomach tightened slightly. A heavy sigh came through the line. Holed up in a grim motel off I-90, developed nasty bronchitis, desperately needed consistent warmth the freezing house couldn't provide. Doctor's strict orders. The image of my mother, sick, alone and vulnerable there, was deeply unsettling. Uncle David is desperate, Sarah continued, her voice lowering. He sold Grandpa's entire prized baseball card collection. That specific sacrifice resonated deeply, a lifetime of curated nostalgia liquidated for temporary gas heat. The money won't last long, Sarah added grimly, which explains the devastating blow. The house, our childhood home where we all grew up, is officially listed for sale online. They simply can't afford it anymore. Hearing this cascade of consequences, a profound melancholic finality settled over me. Sadness washed through me for the broken pieces, for the tangible lost history embodied in the house and those cards, but still, remarkably, no flicker of guilt surfaced. Only the cold, hard truth that the structure I'd stopped propping up had inevitably crumbled under its own neglected weight. The finality I felt after Sarah's call, believing the worst consequences had been revealed, was unexpectedly challenged a few days later. It wasn't the insistent ringing of my father's urgent visit, but a hesitant, softer knock that echoed through my quiet Chicago apartment during a blinding snow squall. Peeking through the peephole, my heart gave a jolt. Mom. She stood huddled on my doorstep, looking small and frail beneath a bulky coat, snow dusting her scarf-wrapped head. Her face, when she looked up, seemed etched with unfamiliar lines of deep weariness. I opened the door just a crack, the warmth from inside rushing out to meet the biting wind she carried with her. Monica. Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling slightly. I'm sorry. I took the bus. I had to. She paused, gathering strength. I needed to say, I was wrong. The silence hung heavy. Not just about Thanksgiving, she pressed on, eyes downcast. I was wrong for years, letting you handle everything, never standing up for you when it came to Jessica. Her apology felt raw, stripped of excuses. Tears welled as she added, I understand now. And I am so sorry. Years ago, those words might have been a balm. Now they landed on old scars. You chose her, Mom, I replied, my voice quiet but firm. "You told me to stay back. Now everything's broken, and now you see?" She shook her head, tears flowing freely. "I'm not asking for anything." I simply held the door, letting the warmth speak for itself. "I'm not angry," I said, meaning it, "but I'm not the same." She nodded slowly, accepting the unyielding boundary, then turned and trudged back into the swirling snow. The silence that descended after her footsteps faded into the Chicago snow wasn't empty. It was vast, clean, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. Closing the door on that chapter felt less like a victory and more like a quiet affirmation of the boundaries I'd finally solidified. Boundaries built not of anger, but of self-preservation. In the days and weeks that followed, life settled into the peaceful rhythm I'd carefully constructed within my small apartment. My routine became my anchor, early mornings fueled by strong coffee, steady shifts at the distribution center, afternoons browsing sunlit bookstores along Michigan Avenue, or simply unwinding at home. Evenings were reserved for simple pleasures, getting lost in a novel, the warm crackle of old jazz records filling the air, the profound comfort of uninterrupted stillness. The desperate calls and accusatory texts from Maple Avenue had vanished completely following Mom's visit. No more pleas, no hollow holiday wishes. This absence wasn't jarring. It felt like breathing fresh air after years in a stuffy room. My cousin Sarah still checked in occasionally, relaying secondhand news like Jessica's latest social media performance, tearful posts about being abandoned, naturally glossing over her own actions and the 9,500 plus I'd contributed. I listened passively, the drama now feeling distant, irrelevant, unable to penetrate the quiet strength I was building. The constant thrum of obligation and resentment that had defined my relationship with them for so long had finally ceased, leaving behind a deep, steady sense of self-ownership I hadn't realized was possible. Living within these clearly defined boundaries brought a clarity I hadn't anticipated, settling deep within me as the Chicago winter relentlessly tightened its grip. The frantic energy that once propelled me to fix their problems, to bridge the gaps left by their choices, had completely dissipated. I was no longer haunted by the ghost of holidays past on Maple Avenue, or burdened by the unspoken expectation that I would always absorb the consequences. The residue of anger had evaporated, leaving not bitterness, but a calm acceptance. Gazing into the comforting glow of the small electric fireplace I'd bought myself, I occasionally pictured their separate struggles, the likely chill in the old house, Jessica navigating bureaucratic tangles, my mother still in that motel off I-90. These thoughts drifted through my mind detachedly, observations rather than worries, acknowledgements of a reality completely separate from my own warm, self-sufficient space. My focus was here, tending the fire I had built for myself, the urge to justify my actions, to explain why withdrawing over $9,500 in support was the only response to being cast aside, had vanished entirely. I owed no one an explanation for choosing survival, for choosing peace. The past was immutable, a landscape I no longer tried to traverse or mend. Winter's icy hold would eventually break, but the quiet resilience I'd discovered within myself, this internal warmth forged against their cold indifference, felt permanent. The decision was mine, and it was unequivocally right. My journey toward this quiet self-possession wasn't just about finding personal resolution. It taught me a vital, often difficult truth about human relationships. My story, I believe, serves as a potent reminder that establishing And fiercely defending personal boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for survival, even within the complex dynamics of family. I learned firsthand that unconditional sacrifice, offered without reciprocation or respect, can inadvertently teach others to devalue your worth, treating your kindness not as a gift, but as an obligation. Sometimes the most profound act of self-love involves stepping away from toxic environments, even when that means severing long-held ties, as painful as that can be. In today's world, where societal pressures often dictate unwavering familial loyalty, my experience encourages us all, perhaps, to critically examine our own relationships, recognize our intrinsic value, and summon the courage to prioritize our mental and emotional well-being above potentially harmful expectations. Letting go, as I discovered, isn't about punishment. It's about choosing peace and reclaiming your own narrative. From my story, I hope you see that not all blood ties are worth preserving at all costs. What do you think about my ultimate decision? Was my firmness a necessary act of self-preservation, or did I go too far? I genuinely want to hear your perspective. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please consider following for more stories exploring these intricate realities.